Peptides are powerful and often misunderstood.
But we're here to change that.
I'm Dr. Kylie Burton.
And I'm Jessica Bricky.
This is Pep Talk. Peptides Unpacked. Science made simple, results made real. Here's a powerful stat for you. Since 2020, more than 9 million Americans have used GLP-1 medications, and for many, they've been more than just weight loss tools.
For some, they've truly been life-saving, and today's guest happens to be one of our closest friends, my husband's former NYPD partner, Jim Emery.
Hi
Jim's
guys, thanks for
story
having
is
me.
incredible. He started using semaglutide to turn his health around, and what's happened since has been nothing short of transformative.
He's opening up about his journey, the challenges, the mindset shifts, and how using tirzepatide helped him get back to living again. And if that wasn't enough, Jim also shares how BPC-157 supported his shoulder recovery after multiple injuries. Just another reminder that healing isn't one size fits all.
This episode is about more than medications or molecules. It's about resilience, redemption, and what's possible when you give your body the right tools to do what it's designed to do.
So grab your coffee, settle in, and join us for a conversation that's real, raw, and genuinely inspiring. So let's dive into Jim's story. Welcome, Jim.
Hi guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, we're really glad you're here.
Yes. I'm excited to hear stories because I've heard snippets of them from Jess, but we want to get in. So, Jess, I'm going to let you take over.
Yeah, so just to give a little background, Jim and I have known each other for many, many, many years, one of our closest friends. So I have certainly had an inside, a front row seat, let's say, to everything that Jim has been through, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And watching this journey with peptides has been really pretty amazing. And the story that led him to make this decision is also something pretty powerful. So I'm going to actually just let Jim tell his why first. We're going to start there. So, if you don't mind, Jim, just why don't you tell us what led you to even start considering peptides in your life?
Sure. So just real quick, a little bit of background. Super, super tough on my body my whole life, right? You mentioned quickly, he's your husband's NYPD partner for a number of years, but prior to that, I spent 10 years in the United States Marine Corps. Um, Beat my body up. I was always an athlete. I was always, on the go and moving, and so I was hard on myself, hard on my body in particular, and my joints. So that type of lifestyle led to about 7 reconstructive shoulder surgeries and many other problems as well. But we'll start with the shoulders because that kind of is what turned me on to the peptides later on. Shoulder surgery after shoulder surgery after shoulder surgery, and there's not so much they can do, after they've quote unquote put you back together so many times, right? So I was lacking, a lot of mobility, lacking a lot of strength, lacking, everything in that area. And so I started doing a little bit of research, and I quite honestly leaned on you a little bit, and we started talking about stem cells, and would that be beneficial to me? So that led me down the road to the peptides, and that's how my journey began with them, and specifically BPC-157 in the beginning.
When you did BPC-157, because that was a couple of years ago, it was certainly before everybody was talking about it like they are now. It's pretty common. People are only just now really getting hot about BPC. So you were doing something really, I mean, it's cutting edge still, but you were way ahead of it when you were doing it a couple of years ago. So when you decided to say yes, how was it even brought to your attention? Who was the doctor? Like, who brought it to you? Was your research, or did a doctor have some insight to that?
Yeah, both. Both. Great question, and I'm sure you're not going to be surprised to hear that you had a lot to do with that, right? Not saying that there was any other research that wasn't done or doctors or that, but listening to you and how you dive into things kind of motivated me to look into my own issues as well, right? So my problems, my everything that was going on inside me is unique to me. It's germane to me. But how I went about trying to fix those things and how I, approached that was directly because of you, right? Doing the
Oh,
research,
thank
doing the
you.
homework. So then, just in speaking with surgeons, in speaking with you, people that I trust, right? You know me as well, again, as well as anybody. I have to trust someone in order to kind of hand myself over to them. And it just kind of kept leading back to these peptides, right? And actually what a peptide is. So once I kind of focused on that and really kind of figured out that it was just proteins and amino acids, things that are in my wheelhouse, things that I know about, it was an easy leap to go ahead and try that.
So what was your experience? Did you use it? Was it daily? Was it for a short term? Because I mean,
Ye-
I certainly know from my perspective that pretty much when we're using BPC, which stands, by the way, these names, guys, on these peptides, they actually do have real names. I know we talk about these acronyms and these numbers, and it's pretty confusing, but BPC actually stands for body protection compound. So there is a real name behind it, but we're just going to shorten it, call it BPC. But my research shows that it can be done in multiple ways. Most of the time, it has a short lifespan, so you're only using it once a day. Some people are using it more than once a day, but for a short period of time, meaning like a 6 or 8 week course, and that is it. Is that what your experience was?
Absolutely. So initially, right, you mentioned that this was a few years ago. So initially, when I first got started with BPC 157, it was nasal, right? So it was a nasal spray that I would take twice a day, once in the morning and once at night. Now, I don't know if the effect of the nasal BPC 157 was as good for me as the subcutaneous route, which we did later on.
Hmm.
Um, and there may have been some placebo stuff in there too, but it certainly put me in a better place, in a mindset where, I wasn't as tight, I wasn't as sore, and I was able to do some things. Once we started subcutaneous, life changer,
Really?
absolute game changer, absolute game changer. I was instructed to inject within 1 to 3 inches of the site, of the injury site, and literally within 4 days, I felt, the stretchiness coming back, the elasticity coming back, the range of motion coming back, and then the confidence and the strength and the ability to then work on it structurally. So to come at it, I guess, from two modalities, right? Medically and then structurally.
Right. You were able to start working out and doing things to strengthen
Yeah,
it that had been so compromised with well, two shoulders, seven
yeah,
shoulder surgeries total between the two. So just to explain to people a couple of things. Number one, you mentioned the nasal spray versus subcutaneous. So subcutaneous, for those that don't know, is an injection that we're doing into like the fatty tissue, usually the belly, the thighs, the arms. With BPC 157, it can be done two different ways as far as sub-Q. It can be put into any of those areas. It can also be put into the area of injury. Sometimes that area of injury, though, is a little bit difficult. So, like right now, I'm taking it for an ankle injury. And can you imagine doing a little needle in the ankle? There's not a lot to put in there, as far as, not hitting a bone or something like that. And it would hurt. So while it does seem to do a little bit better when you inject near the injury, it does also work just fine if you're putting it anywhere in the body, number one. Number two, when we are looking at a nasal spray or an oral compound of a peptide versus a sub-Q, um, we are going to absorb and use it significantly better, as was your experience. We just absorb it better. We break down those molecules a little bit better. However, if there is somebody that is really needle phobic and it's a matter of using a peptide that's going to be a nasal spray or an oral, that it might have a little bit less absorption versus a needle because they're really afraid of it. All day long, I'm going to say, go ahead, do the nasal spray or do the oral compound of it, because even if it's 20% less absorption, that's 80% more than you're getting if you weren't doing it at all. So
sure,
yes, sub-Q is going to do better, and it's even better if you can do it by the site, but there's so much room for use.
So
correct.
let me just throw an overview real quick.
Yep,
BPC 157, body protective composition
compound.
compound, okay?
Yep.
Body protective compound. You guys are using it primarily for joints and injuries and recovery.
Yes, but not just joints. So, surgical injury, like if you're
Okay?
coming out of surgery, it's going to help with that. Just a little tweak, a tear, joint pain, joint replacement. The list of what it does, because it is regenerative for soft tissue. Also, really, really good for the gut lining. Really good for the gut lining, which, as we
Oh.
know, so much of our
So
body
it could
depends
be
on
like
the
for
gut.
Crohn's and IBC and IBD and
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, from an inflammation standpoint,
that's
you
cool.
know, I don't know the the ins and the outs as much as you guys do, but I do know that, from an inflammation standpoint, game changer, absolute life changer. I mean, as good, if not better
And you're
than
coming like
ice
this is
and
coming from an
NSAIDs.
athlete. Jim, how old
Yes,
are you?
I'm 51.
Okay, so an athlete in their 50s who is still treating their body like they're 20, being very physical, I can imagine. But like I have three younger brothers and they all did track and field. And
Sure.
two of them, one of them specifically, his career was terminated because of a hamstring tear. And I think, he was like doing college, top of his top 100 in the state, or not even the state, in the nation. But I think if someone's listening to this, and as a mom, if I have someone who's in a high school football, soccer, tennis, whatever the sport is, track and field, and I know a lot of track and field athletes struggle with hamstring tears, is this something that they should be looking into?
100%. And I would say this too. It's, the delivery of what it is we're talking about, right? So when talking about athletes, um, for me, how it resonated with me and it made sense for me is we talk about, what is a peptide? It's a protein, right? It's a protein, it's an amino acid. And we know as athletes what those two things do to our muscles, right? We need the
Mhm.
protein, we need the amino acids, especially the nine essential ones. So if you come at an athlete that way and you're saying this BPC-157 is going to check all of those boxes for you, right? They're going to dive into it because that resonates. They hear that. Okay, protein, got it. Muscle mass, got it. This is what I need to grow. That, got it. And then they're going to do their own research and hammer down. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think we're going
I
to see
love
more.
it for not just the teenagers, the young adults, but for the CrossFitters, the marathoners,
Sure.
anybody who wants to be physically active, like all three of us want to be physically active in our adult lives, the same applications apply.
Yeah, for sure. I think that BPC is, well, they've nicknamed it the Wolverine. So, the Marvel character Wolverine who has this amazing ability to heal. There's a reason why it's been nicknamed Wolverine because it really does help people that much. Now, I will also say before we moved on to the next part of Jim's story is that we know that peptides are manufactured in the gut, right? In the small intestines. And so we make these things naturally. But over my career, and Kylie, I've been in practice as long as you've been alive. I laugh about this all the time because I'm so old in comparison. But in my lifetime in practice, 30 something years ago, would rarely see a knee injury, a shoulder tear, any of those things. And for a long time, I equated that to, and I still do, equated it to the way that people were nourishing their body, right? They weren't prioritizing protein in general, and what they were was just freaking garbage. Too many carbohydrates, they're just breaking down their tissue on multiple levels. But as time goes on, I've learned more, I've seen more and whatnot. So I would have to believe that a large part of why we're seeing all of these joints break down this way or be so at risk is because our gut health is really lousy. So even in young people where we would expect them to have maybe not have an injury or as many as they do, or be able to recover easier on their own, they're not. And it goes back to this foundational wellness, which just isn't existing. People are hungry for it, they're looking for change. But BPC is going to do twofold. One, it's going to help with the injury. Two, it's going to have a drastic improvement on that gut health that we need for a better immune system, for a better mindset, and all these things that will build on top of that. So, anyway, we could talk about PPC for forever, but why don't we like skip into what I think is an even more, I mean, listen, Jim suffered for many years, so I know that the shoulder part is super exciting for him to have seen so much benefit there. But this next part of his story to me is just absolutely remarkable. So, Jim, I'm going to ask you to start with maybe take us back to a year ago or so where your health was and what was going on, if that's okay, before we jump into
Yeah,
getting right to the peptides.
sure. Um, so, my story is just that. It's my story. And I have no issues, kind of diving into it and talking about it. But I think it's important to kind of understand who I am first, right? My mindset. I am all or nothing. I'm a million miles an hour, right? Or nothing. If I see something that's good for me, I want it. I want all of it. Um, it's just kind of like my personality. It's who I am. So when I got into physical fitness and I started really kind of hitting it hard a few years ago, it was 100 miles an hour. And it was, 7,000 calories a day, and it was 4 or 5 hours a day in the gym. And it was really just kind of trying to focus on getting everything accomplished in such a short amount of time. What I didn't realize was I was killing myself inside. Everything that I was doing, everything that I was taking from a what I thought was a healthy standpoint, and everything that I was doing was so negative for me, that it kind of put my health into a tailspin. Um, I won a national Gold's Gym competition at 247 pounds for 50-year-old men. Within 6 weeks of that competition, I was diagnosed with kidney disease. I was diagnosed with heart disease. I was diagnosed with severe PTSD. And it's been a struggle since then. With your help, with my wife's help, and a bunch of different doctors and people that genuinely care about me, we were able to turn things around. So I'm going to take you from a place 2 years ago, 247 pounds, to today, 165 pounds. My kidneys are functioning properly. My health is functioning My heart, excuse me, is functioning properly. My mindset is 1,000 times better. I'm a better dad. I'm a better husband. I'm a better friend. And that's because I was able to kind of focus on things and get myself back to where I needed to be and listen to people that care about me and do things the right way as opposed to how I wanted to do them. So, yeah, ask away.
I don't know that it was necessarily a right or a wrong way when knowing the inside track. I think that was your journey and these were things that you needed to learn for yourself. I mean, sometimes we have to get beat over the head a few times to learn some of these life lessons. I think for me on the outside, it was really scary. It was really scary to watch your body go through what it was going through. And I knew what was happening inside too. And the other thing is too, I talk about this a lot. You were putting on a lot of muscle, right? You were gaining mass doing what you were doing. I mean, Kylie, if you saw the pictures of him, you wouldn't believe he was just massive. Not massive, like his muscles were just tremendous.
Like a bodybuilder, massive.
Yeah, so but for
Yeah.
me, I always look at a lot of people and I think, well, that looks good in a photograph or that might look good on the scale or the number or those wins there, that measurable things in that way, but you can be skinny fat and so unhealthy on the inside. And that is always the thing that scares me the most. And that certainly was the thing that scared you. I think that, and all of these things, the heart thing is scary, your mental wellness, super scary. The kidney disease for you, Jim, I think was probably one of the scariest of all of your diagnoses. They were all heavy. That was probably the
Yeah.
scariest.
Right. When you are focused on, doing things for yourself that you think are beneficial, right? And then you find out that no, you were doing it wrong the whole time. Everything you ever thought you knew, was wrong. That's tough to hear, but to hear it through a health diagnosis is even worse, right? It's much worse. Um, you touched real quick on mindset, mental mindset, and how imperative that was. But you're right. When I got that kidney diagnosis, I didn't have that. I was a tailspin. I went down a rabbit hole. I went to a place that I never want to go to again. Right. The sense of self worthlessness and everything in between, because I knew that I did that to myself, not intentionally, but I knew that everything that I had done up until that point led me to right where I was. And at that point in time, it was all dark. I didn't see a way out. I didn't know that there was a way out.
Right. So that brings us to the decision for peptides. That was something
Yeah.
that one of your doctors thought that it was a good option to be cardiovascular protective. And one thing that people don't talk about because it's not FDA approved is how it is helping people that are in, later stage kidney disease, stage 3, even stage 4, how it can help bring people back. Is it going to cure people with kidney disease? I am not proclaiming that, right?
Sure.
You can certainly speak to your story and your experience and what staging you were at, but using a GLP-1 and a GIP, which was your combination, tirzepatide, um, was something that really was the kidney changer for you,
No
right?
question. Yeah, no question. And immediately after that, right to the heart, right? So I mean, it was doing its thing in conjunction, but one happened and then the other came, snapped back right away. But also I want to mention that there were liver issues too, right? Everything that
Oh,
I was
yes.
doing
Hmm.
was, it was kind of focusing on everything. It was so detrimental in the long run. So yeah, so the decision was made. I was talking with a nephrologist, and then I was seeing my heart doctor, my cardiologist. I was seeing everyone. It was my primary care physician that sat me down and he said, at 50 years old right now, what do you want to do? What does tomorrow look like for you? He said, do me a favor, scratch your back. I said, do what? He said, scratch your back. And he put his finger in the middle of my back. I couldn't reach my hand around. I couldn't, my flank I could get to. And he's like, you look good. You look great. He said, but you're killing yourself inside. So this is what I want to do. And he laid out a plan. And the more I looked at it and the more I talked about it and the more I thought about it, we got after it. And, from that day forward, life has been exponentially better. When I say exponentially better, I mean in every single facet. I'll get you two girls my numbers just so that you can add it to your podcast. But the change was so drastic that I have been contacted by that doctor and his team of public affairs people, and they want to write a book based solely on the changes that occurred with me and the time frame in which they took place. Um, but yeah, and everything
Well-deserved
direct
book
result.
too.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
Very
you.
cool.
Thank you.
When that book gets out, for sure, let us know. And Jim, I just want to let you know too that you're not alone in this matter. I had a patient early on in practice, an extended family member, where it's one of those like of someone of someone of someone,
Sure.
and she was a marathoner, and she ran herself almost to death. And she'd go out like 4 or 5. I mean, we're in Utah where the elevation is high, and she'd go hiking for days at a time, calling it exercise and it's healthy for me. When then I had to have a conversation with her, like, look, I know what you think. You're doing great things, but in the inside of your body, you're the skinny fat. You are falling apart left and right. Now, unfortunately for her, she didn't listen. But you did, and because of that, you have changed your life. And like you've said earlier, you're a better dad, you're a better friend, you're a better everything else because of the way you feel on the inside. And I feel like that's a lot that everybody needs to realize that if you're not taking care of you, you're not going to take care of anybody else either. Your relationships are suffering because the inside of you is suffering.
100%. 100%. PTSD, Carly, I want to talk about that real quick too, is a huge, I don't even want to say underlying factor because I believe that kind of diminishes the role that it plays. It is at the forefront of my mind and my journey, right? So my time in the Marine Corps was stressful, very stressful. And I struggle with that, right? Which is why my personality is the way that it is. That's why I dive into things a million miles an hour looking
Yeah,
for a
you're a
fix.
Marine at heart.
That's it. I just got to
My
find it.
husband's the
I got to,
exact same way. I get it.
right?
Yeah.
So, so yeah, so everything about me is full tilt. But that means the bad too, right? That means the bad too. So I have to, it didn't start changing for me upstairs until I realized that I played such a huge role in everything that's going on with me, right? I played such a, my actions dictated where I'm at today, right? And it was only because of other people like Jess and people such as yourself and my doctors that kind of made me see and then bring me, kind of snap me back around and dive into this aspect of things. And so here we are.
Let's talk about the actual mechanisms of you using the tirzepatide for you, Jim, because
So
Jim, can
certainly
you also
you
correlate it
started.
as just as you're talking about the question, can you correlate it to your PTSD? Like bring in how the peptides not just helped you from a physical perspective, but also from that mental. Okay, go, Jess.
Let's do that first. Yeah.
sure. Okay. So you want
I
how's
know
PT?
peptides are
Share
helping
share what you're
drastically from
comfortable
the
with, Jim.
physical rebuilding of the body, but when you talk about PTSD, I mean, for someone to get diagnosed with it, quote unquote, takes a certain level. But I feel like every single person who lives on the planet Earth experiences trauma.
Sure.
Whether
So
it's big T trauma or little T trauma, anything in between, like we all experience it. And the moment we can understand that in humanity, the much better we're going to be and the much better we're going to treat each other. So, from your experience, having been in the Marine Corps and NYPD, which I know from Jess's story with her husband, were you there on 9/11?
I was not. I was in the academy.
Okay. But still, you're around those individuals.
Sure.
Go for it.
Yeah. So I think, where do you carry those stressors that you talked about, right? That trauma, right? How do you carry it? Where do you carry it? And then how do you effectively release it, right? So if we're going to talk about PTSD and how that kind of rolls into peptides and my journey, um, me, it was all about focusing on one thing, whether it was good or bad for me. That was my outlet.
Okay.
Dr. Carly, it could have been fishing. It could have been tying my shoes. It could have been. It didn't matter. It really didn't matter what it was. Coaching kids. Um, I've had probably 15 jobs since I retired from the Marine Corps and the police department. It's only because I'm still trying to like scratch that itch, right? I'm trying to find that one thing that kind of makes me whole. And that's a direct result of my PTSD. So where do you carry that stress? Where do you carry that trauma? And then how do you get rid of it in a healthy way? Which is why I think your friend was probably running like she was, which is why I was lifting like I did.
That's why
Um,
my husband lifted like he did once upon a time.
right.
Now he hunts.
So
His one
right,
thing is hunting, and he is all in hunting.
right. So how do you effectively release all that stuff and do it healthy, right? So PTSD for me has always been a stressor, has always been a struggle for me, always. Um, but learning to deal with that, as opposed to hide it, that's I think when I turned a corner, right? When I kind of understood what it was and how it affected me, it rewired my brain, right? So I don't necessarily think about things um, that like I used to. So I know how I used to focus on things prior to the Marine Corps, right? I know how I used to deal with things. It's completely different now. My brain is so rewired. And it was just a matter of learning to kind of live that way or live with those things. Um, and then I think the peptides and the amino acids and everything that the weight loss and everything that kind of brought me around to this one place has been miraculous for me. Miraculous.
So you wouldn't say that the peptides were the because listen, when we're and because I know your backstory, um, we're talking big T. So when we're talking about your PTSD, it's not like it just disappears. It's not like Jim started taking peptides and suddenly this is like
No,
he's all fixed. So I want to
no,
make that very
yeah.
clear that it's definitely not where you are. But from an outsider looking in, it helped you start to realize that you had, as you're unraveling, as you're healing, as you're walking through this, believe it or not, as these things are healing your gut, which is directly linked to brain health, it's bringing this stuff probably even more to the forefront, but not only to the forefront, like, oh, holy crap, this has happened to me. This is something I have to deal with and talk about, but also in a way that you are able to now talk about it that maybe you weren't 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Is it because the peptides help to heal certain things? Maybe. Is it because you were on this journey of wellness in general? Maybe it's the whole picture. So I want to make it clear peptides didn't or haven't fixed that, but they've been part of your healing journey with that. Is that fair to say?
I would take it a step further, and I would say it is an overwhelming part of my journey, right? So if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, right? So once I started this weight loss journey with these peptides and with the GLP-1, the tirzepatide, and healing from the inside out, right? Does that sound familiar? Have you told me that a time or two? Healing from the inside out, my mental health got exponentially better, right? So I don't know numerically what the correlation is or what the numbers are. I don't. I know in my head that it's 100%, right? I know that because of X, Y happened, right? So with PTSD, there's a thing called an impact statement that they want you to write immediately. So I've struggled with it for about 20 years. I've never written that impact statement. I still can't bring myself to do it. But the fact that I am talking to you about it right now, or the fact that there are now two people in my world that know my story,
Hmm.
as opposed to just me,
Right.
that's huge. That's
Right.
huge. And we're making strides every single day, right? And I owe that all to my health, my mental health. So my mental health started with my physical health. My physical health, that's what we had to work on. And I mean, my EGFR was in the 30s for
Yeah.
my kidneys, in the 30s,
And
right?
to
Talking
let
about,
people know it should be 80 and above.
yeah, stage 5 kidney disease, and, talking about getting on a transplant list. 247 pounds, just having won a national competition, looking at myself in the mirror and seeing everything I'd ever wanted to see. Inside, I was dying.
Well, I'm certainly grateful that you were able to find somebody that led you here and you were able to use them. I want to finish up a little bit and talk about your dosing, because I'm a big
Yeah,
proponent of microdosing. I'm a big proponent of, and microdosing doesn't mean that that is what is needed for everybody, because I think when you have larger weight loss goals like you did, I do think you need to get to standard dosing. However, I feel like a lot of times we go in with the standard dosing, it's like drinking from a fire hose. It's a lot on the body. But when you started this, that was the option. Like nobody, well, there were people talking about it, but that wasn't something that people in your world were talking about. So you went right in with standard dosing on tirzepatide. You went up in your dose during your journey. I don't know where you're at right now, what that looks like for you, but if you can walk us through that a little bit and maybe even how your body responded initially, because tirzepatide has less symptoms and side effects than just a semaglutide, but they still exist.
sure. So it's my understanding, and you guys will be much better versed in this, but it's my understanding that the tirzepatide is dual modality, right? It
It
comes at it
is.
from two, right? Two
Yeah.
antagonists.
Yeah.
Um, so which that's why the decision was made, for me to do that as opposed to a semaglutide, which is the Ozempic, right? And
Yeah.
and Wegovy, things like that.
Yeah.
So initially, the initial consultation wasn't let's get this muscle and this weight off you. It was let's kind of see how we can fix this, and fix your kidneys. So that's why we initially looked at a tirzepatide, right? The dual modalities. It can kind of help with my kidney disease a little bit. A byproduct was, I started feeling better right away, started looking a little bit better, started, everything, a little bit of weight started coming off. And that was at 2.5 milligrams, which is, it's my belief, is the lowest dose of the
That's a,
Manjaro,
it's a
which was
standard, that's a standard starting dose. Yeah.
okay. Yep. So, with that, no side effects, no nauseousness, no constipation, no nothing. Felt relatively good, but the weight wasn't necessarily coming off.
Yep.
And then the kidney numbers were starting to tick in the right direction. So we did that for probably about 3 or 4 months. And then the decision was made, let's bump you up. Let's double that dose. Let's get you to 5. And let's see if we can start getting those kidney numbers to tick back in the right direction again, get them moving a little bit more. So again, almost the same exact kind of procedure, 4 or 5 months in, same, no side effects, no, ill effect, nothing at all. I felt really good. But with the 5, the weight started coming off a little bit more. We started noticing about 1.5 pounds a week. So what I think is unique about what my doctor did too is he made sure that I was on a Renfro scale. And about every 3 days, we would look at about 30 different numbers,
Yeah. Your whole
right?
composition.
Everything, right? He had me on uh, the glucose monitors, right? So
Yep.
he had direct access to that. I had to grant that access. So every day he could look at what that, I had to hop on the scale every morning. He could see every
Bet you
single
have a lot of good
number.
data along
I
this
do.
journey.
I really do. So he was able to see every single day from a scale standpoint and all of those numbers. And then from a glucose monitor standpoint, what was happening. And then the blood tests as well. So we were able to kind of just look at things going on. So after about 6 months of 5%, the data was so overwhelmingly positive that my body was just reacting in such a manner that he said, let's try this, right? Let's do the 7.5 and let's see where we get your kidneys. 2 months on the 7.5, and my EGFR was back to normal. My left ventricle in my heart was not doing what it was supposed to do. It was only acting at about 28%. It's back up into the 90s, what it's supposed to be doing now. So once we got to that 7.5, and that it started doing what it was doing inside my body, everything just snapped around. But then that 1.5 to 2 pounds turned into some weeks like 5 pounds. Because what I had to do was kind of focus on my appetite. What happens, and I think a lot of people don't understand, is you still got to eat. You can't eat like a gavone, which, hello, guilty. Um, when you're lifted as much as I did and eating 7,000 calories a day, there wasn't much that you couldn't eat, right? So you develop some unhealthy lifestyle habits and whatnot. But I had to remind myself to eat because the hunger was just not there. Um, so kind of focused on these terrible tasting drinks that Jessica makes me drink for my stomach and my
Oh,
prebiotic
stop.
stuff. But but yeah, kind of focusing on those things and just eating healthier in general, right?
I
So
think in another episode we mentioned how make every bite count.
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's
not me.
really what you had to do was you transitioned from 7,000 calories a day to whatever the calorie count was.
Yeah, but that
And when you
wasn't
did
happening in,
eat, it was like this bite needs to count.
yeah, that wasn't happening for Jim,
No,
right? So,
not even
and
remotely close. And I don't even
yeah,
know that it's
so
happening now, if I'm being completely honest. If
yeah.
I'm making a bite count, it's going to be a Reese's peanut butter cup.
Oh,
Right. But
geez.
no, so I know
Okay, that's
I make
fair.
better,
That
much
is,
better
can we just
decisions.
put, this is where we stamp a big F on the screen over my
uh,
face.
yeah. So, no, so
He's
yeah,
human.
I work at it. I struggle with it. I've never met a chocolate covered raisin that I didn't like. But decisions are much better now. They're certainly made from a point of knowledge, right? It's a knowledge based decision now as opposed to a gratification based decision. What do I want? Now it's more along the lines of, hey, what do I need today? What does my body need to continue to feel this way? Because I like this, right? I like this me. I like this version of me. I like my mindset. I like my health. I like how I look. So now it's just a knowledge base, right? What do I need to eat today to make sure that I maintain where I'm at today and I continue to feel this great, right? Pretty simple for me, but it wasn't that way.
I think we're all a work in progress, Jim, right? And you, this year in 2025, has been such an awakening for you, and these are
Yeah,
layers. So if I were to walk you through a day, I would nourish you completely different than you're nourishing yourself. But I think you know that, right? I
sure.
think that you know that I want more for you, but I know that that's coming. I know that that is going to be part of your story at some point. I want to just back up a little bit in this. So when we talk about Jim losing 5 pounds a week, guys, that is not the goal here. It is
Okay.
really nice and also addictive to look at those wins on the scale. Weight loss can be incredibly addictive. I'm not saying that it was for you. I'm just saying in general, it feels really good when you've struggled with your weight, when you see these things happening and you just want more and more and more of it. You just kind of like want all in. But when we're losing weight quickly, one of the things that we do see that happens is we are going to lose not just the fat in our body, but we will lose muscle mass in our body. And so we want to be protective of that. And that's where the every bite matters kind of comes in because what we do know is anytime somebody loses weight, you will lose some muscle mass. But when
Well,
you lose it
with
really
Jim
quick,
too, it's mostly muscle.
well, yes and no. It
Okay.
depends on what you're doing to kind of nourish that, right? So in this particular case with Jim, there was a lot of fat release, obviously, because there's a lot of stored fat in there as well, which brings its own toxins that get released into, and that's a whole nother conversation, right? That's a whole nother detox thing that was happening within his body. But to see that weight loss, I just want to like emphasize that 1 pound initially, 1.5 pound initially when he was doing it in the beginning, that's fantastic. And also, it's common to see people not respond from a weight loss perspective. Maybe for some people, it might be month two, month three, month before their body recognizes once again how to communicate. Oh, that's right. We used to make these things once upon a time. This is what we do with them. This is how we roll. And so some people are going to have this kind of slow response where initially there's nothing happening and then it kind of starts to work. 1 to 1.5 pounds was a perfect weight loss. When we get into like 5 pounds a week, that's scary weight loss. We're not looking for that. But going forward, I think in Jim's story, his next layer of healing is to continue doing all the wonderful things that he's doing. And I don't know where you're at, and I will ask your maintenance. um, to start making those bites count so that we're prioritizing protein and fiber and getting the things in there so that now we don't end up with another layer of metabolic dysfunction because that does happen with people. There's, rebound weight will happen. We can, I think, desensitize our body to the peptides just like we did with insulin, which brought most people here. So what does it look like now? Are you on a maintenance dose, Jim?
Yes, but I just want to back up 1 second and clarify too. So there was not one medical doctor in my team of, my caregivers that were happy with the 5 pounds a week, right?
Okay.
Nobody, there wasn't one of them that looked at that and said, "Yeah, that's healthy. We want to continue doing that." I think, and I'll share the numbers with you guys. But when that dose went up to 7.5, the the beneficial benefits that it gave my kidneys and it gave my heart were so good that
Yeah.
they were willing to let my body lose that 5 pounds a week. And also, I want to mention to you that I didn't want to lose 5 pounds a week. When I thought, I was wearing double XL shirts and they were tight in the arms, and now I'm
Right.
in a extra medium. So when I was losing that weight, I was like, oh no, this is not necessarily what
All
I
my
want.
hard work is going
Yeah,
away.
right. This is not what I want. But the numbers don't lie. So when they were showing me what was happening to my, my blood, my kidneys, my heart, when they were showing me everything that was happening from a metabolic standpoint,
Yes.
it was just like, okay, I'll deal with the, losing a ton of weight, right? Well, it was me. But yeah, I didn't want to lose the weight.
The only reason I bring that up, Jim, is really just because peptides are so accessible now for
Sure.
people to get them. And those people that their sole goal is weight loss, I wanted to emphasize
Yeah.
that's not normal. Everybody's story is so individual, which is why I love another reason why I like compounded peptides because people can figure out, where
Their
they
sweet
need
spot.
to be, which is not necessarily these specific going up every 2.5 milliliters every, whatever it is.
Sure.
So I just wanted to emphasize that while it's really cool to think we could lose that weight that quickly, in most cases, that is not ideal. Yours is specific because of the cardiovascular and the kidney issues.
Sure. So you asked real quick about a maintenance dose. So yes, it's 2.5 now. But I
Hmm.
think it's important that we talk about how we got to that and why we got to that. Right. I mentioned that scale that I utilize. Um, so the numbers that gives me, and it gives that my team. And I say team because there really is there's like 5 or 6 people that are just have bought all into, what I got going on.
And
So
Jim,
when they look at
I want to emphasize that too because a lot of people they'll come to Jess or they'll come to me or they'll go to whoever it is and they'll think, "Oh, you're my provider." No, we are a team. We're part of your team. We may not all be in the same office.
sure,
And especially when we talk about getting these peptides from another source, like that practitioner, that clinician who's providing you the peptides is a member of your team along with your primary care physician and everybody else you choose. So you're
sure.
no different. You just had a team paying very close attention to your organ numbers.
Sure, sure. But that those numbers and that scale were able to give me, the exact me and them, that team, the exact feedback that they were looking for, right? So when I went down to a maintenance dose, which right now is 2.5 a week, and I've not gained an ounce of weight, I've not lost any weight. I eat normally. It's not, I don't go crazy. We don't eat out a lot. I'm focused on what's going into my mouth, right? So that maintenance dose of 2.5 really was just once we saw the numbers get to where they wanted to be, where we wanted to be, we were able to look at them all and say, okay, we want your BMI down to, 14%. We want your muscle mass down to this. We want, X, Y, and Z down to these numbers. Once we got there, that was the motivator to go down to the maintenance dose, not what the number on the scale said from a
Right.
pounds standpoint, what it was saying about me metabolically. That's how we determined, hey, this is where we want to get to, input from the cardiologist, input from the nephrologist, input from myself, where am I comfortable? Um, and once we got there, that's when the maintenance dose started.
Yeah. I think that to wrap this up, for me, when talk about your story, when I hear you talk about your story, I mean, I don't know. A lot of people keep their story quiet for a long time because they feel a shame and embarrassment to use these therapies, which they are. It's no different than missing thyroid hormone. It's no different than using HRT. It's no different, right? This is something that our body needs to live better, to live longer, to heal. And there is a lot of shame and embarrassment, especially for me as a nutritionist. When I mean, I did it for the neuroprotective benefits, but for me, it was like, I can't figure this out on my own. This is what I do for a living. How could I
Right.
need these things? So there's a lot of shame in us not talking about it. But your story is amazing. It's going to help a lot of people. It's important to know that it is not just about weight loss, which is all we pretty much hear when it comes to using these peptides. And I think that your story emphasizes that. Yes, you certainly lost, I don't know what the number is, just shy of 100 pounds, whatever it is, 80 pounds. I don't know. What is it? What is the number?
92.
92 pounds. That's a lot, right?
Yep.
And so when you hear somebody say that, you're like, oh my God, I'd do anything to lose the weight. This is great. It is so much more than weight loss. We have receptor sites on every organ in our body. We have receptor sites in our joints. We manufacture them in our gut. It is, in this particular case, supporting our liver health, which we didn't even get to, but that's okay because we'll talk about it in another episode. Our gut health, all of these things that are so incredibly neglected and probably destroyed, that these things get to help you regenerate and recover from. So it's a bigger picture than just weight loss, as you've so graciously shared your story with us to explain that.
Yeah, 100%. I'm actually, to be quite honest, a little off topic, but I'm looking forward to, what it's going to do for like infertility and things like that. I mean, these peptides, which the body produces, right? And then we have learned to kind of synthesize a little bit too, are from nootropic standpoints, from infertility, muscle mass, everything. It's amazing what it can do if used properly. But I want to real quick emphasize, if you don't change kind of up here how you're thinking about it and how you approach every day, you're going to go back right back to where you were, right? I mean, so yeah, it's you have to change. You got to be willing to change. You have to look at it and take it for what it's worth, and you got to be doing it for the right reasons, I think. And if you are, well, then you realize the benefits.
Well, listen, every time I hear Jim talk about his journey, I am reminded why these conversations matter so much. It's not just about the science, it's about people taking back their health one decision at a time.
Exactly. Peptides like semaglutide and BPC-157 aren't magic, but when they're used safely and intentionally, they can help the body remember how to heal. Jim's story shows what happens when you pair the right tool with the right mindset.
And just a quick reminder, always work with a qualified provider or telemedicine partner when exploring peptides. Safe sourcing and personalized dosing make all the difference.
If Jim's story inspired you, make sure you're following the show so you don't miss what's next. In our upcoming episode, we're diving into peptides for gut health and mood. As we have learned today, they're more powerful than just for even healing joints and weight loss. This powerful connection between your microbiome and your mind.
So you can find me, Jess, my website, b2bwithjess.com. It's B number two B with Jess. And then you can also find me on my Instagram. That's JessB_LMT_NC.
Jim, real quick, if people are looking to find your story, where can they learn more about it?
Yeah, eventually, we're kind of
Eventually in a
working on a
book?
we're kind of working on one now, and we're trying to figure out how to tie things together. But yeah, I would just say this: I would reach out to Jessica. She can get a hold of me anytime. And yeah, I'd be more than happy to come on again with you guys and share even more so, or whatever it is you guys need from me. I'm an open book, and if I can help somebody, that'd be great. And God bless.
Yeah, I'm sure you've helped many people who are listening to this. And if this resonates with you guys, please share this episode on your social media, on your YouTube, wherever it is, because people, as Jess and I have tried to reiterate again and again and again, peptides are used for more than just weight loss. They have some powerful healing tools. So whatever you're struggling with health with your health, Who knows? Maybe this will be the key that unlocks the door to your body healing. If you are interested in learning more about me, you can go to drkylieburton.com. You can check out drkylieburton.com/peptides to start your journey, or find me on the Unshakable Brain podcast. This is Pep Talk, Peptides Unpacked. Science made simple, results made real. See you next time.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.